welcome to the podcast. I have special guest Sara Tufano with me today from Sara Tufano Homes. Actually, why don't I let you introduce yourself?
Okay.
Tell us who you are.
I'm Sara Tufano. I have been an agent for 13 years. I just started a team, and we are in Wallingford downtown, and we have 3 agents on our team, and we're with the Real Brokerage.
Awesome. Actually, well, I didn't forget this, but you've already been on our podcast. And you were with another company at that time, but we kind of talked about collaboration and the fact that we were from different companies, and yet we helped each other out a lot, and we continue to do that. So a couple of things have changed since then, in that you not only have switched companies, but you also have now formed a team. And so now you have some agents working under you. So I wanted to focus on that, and I wanted to just kind of talk about some of the joys and challenges of team building. You and I are more or less in the same boat in terms of building out our team, going through the same challenges, going through the same type of hurdles, and we're learning as we go. So let's touch up on that, and why don't you walk us through what your experience has been like?
Yeah, so I decided to start a team mainly because, there's only so much production you could do by yourself. You kind of tap out at a certain level before your service starts to slip. And so I said, how can I continue to grow without losing the momentum and losing that service piece, because that's something that's super important to me for my clients to get. So I decided I'm going to switch companies. I moved to the Real Brokerage, and we were all working from home at that time. It was sort of mid-COVID. It was the end of 2020, and I said, well, if I'm going to make a change, but no better time than now. So I decided to go, and it was a great move for me. And then from there, I ended up getting linked up with Noah, who's on my team, and he's a brand new agent. He actually was my past client, got his real estate license. He was, totally into it, ready to rock. And I said, well, I appreciate you, let's start this thing. So he came on board. Then I got introduced to Laura, who was actually a friend of one of my lenders. So he introduced us, and she came on board. And it was kind of like I really didn't go look for people. Right. They just kind of fell in my lap, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then I had Kemley, who was referred to me from somebody in my BNI networking group. So that's kind of how it all started. And like I said, there was really no rhyme or reason to it. It was just, these are the people that kind of came to me, and I said, you know what, let's try it. So we've all been together now for a year now, and we've had our sets of challenges just in general, like being a brand new agent, me still having my business, and trying to find time to separate the training time versus mentoring time versus my production time. So that has been a challenge, but it's something that I have worked through, and now we are rocking and rolling.
And it's a fun challenge, I'm sure.
Yeah, because you kind of figure out, like, they're new. What did I wish I knew when I was new? So I kind of would do these Mondays. Now every Monday we have a meeting, and it's every Monday, 12 o'clock, like clockwork, we do it. And we do a different topic every week. So now we're kind of structured in a way where they know what to expect, and they know not to jump the gun, because we're going to learn it as we go. I think there's a plan that they should follow, and it's not just go 180 miles an hour. You have to kind of take the steps little by little and learn as you go.
Yeah. You touched up on so much, and I'm like, my mind is racing because of all the questions that I want to ask, and also not just that, but a lot of the stuff that I want to share as well, because you triggered a lot of things that I've gone through, and so already I think we're going to run over, but that's okay, because I actually want to cover a lot. So you mentioned separating roles, or kind of wearing a few different hats, right? Which for me, I realized early on that being the person that wore many different hats was not the person that I wanted to be. And so in delegating certain responsibilities in my office, I realized that as a broker, I still maintain a few hats, in that you're right. I have my day-to-day duties, which include office work, admin stuff or whatnot, but at the same time, I have to be mindful of the fact that I need to dedicate enough time to my agents. What am I doing to actually train and coach? I have my one-on-one times with them, and so I have my coach hat on that during that hour, and then I'm a teacher when I'm doing the trainings, and then at the same time, I want to be there as moral support and encouragement, and sometimes I actually forget that you're kind of constantly being monitored, and I think we actually talked about this yesterday at the happy hour, in that we need to constantly be mindful and aware of what kind of vibe and energy we give off. We might be having a bad day, but at the end of the day,
exactly, it
we
falls on you.
have to control that, because that radiates to our team, and if we're constantly in a bad mood, or we're down, or we're to ourselves, that's going to impact the morale of your team, and how they communicate with you, how they collaborate with one another. And so that has been one of the biggest challenges for me, because I'm very much the type of person that likes to be in my bubble and do my work.
You're right.
And then I'm constantly reminded, oh wait, I can't be this closed off, because they're going to start hating me or resenting me, right?
Right.
So that's been interesting. So the fact that you mentioned that kind of triggered that. So how do you kind of manage that?
I think a lot of it is culture. You know, we always talk about culture. We always say we want people that are, you know, like personalities and all these different things. But at the end of the day, you know, people who are in a good mood and take care of themselves and take time for themselves are the people who are going to radiate that great energy to other people. And so that's one of the things that I learned very quickly, that, you know, one person's, you know, negativity, or one person has a bad day, and it kind of like throws everybody else's mood off. And for me, I didn't want that in my office. And, you know, originally we were doing our meetings in my dining room. Like we didn't have an office. We were a cloud brokerage. We didn't have space. And finally I said, you know what, let's get an office space. So we did. We got the office space, and things have really improved since then, just because we have a safe space that's comfortable, and people can go and get their work done, and also bounce ideas off each other. Because I think, you know, I have one agent who was in a rut this week because she's like, I only have one pending. I don't know. I've never been in this situation before. And you have another agent on the team who's not me, but who's able to say to her, keep your chin up, keep doing what you're doing. You know, it's consistency, and that kind of motivation is just, I can't pay it. I couldn't pay money for it. You know what I mean? And so that to me is more important than if they close 20 deals a year. I don't care. As long as they are doing what they have to do, and they're being strategic about it and helping each other out, because that, I think, is the most important part.
Yeah, that's so true, because oftentimes we get, I mean, I learned this the hard way in some capacity, in that I wanted to focus on teaching them the real estate stuff, right? And I said, okay, how am I going to structure my training or my office meetings around, here's how you can do this better. Now, when I have my one-on-ones, it's really focused around them as a person and professional development. You mentioned how culture is so important, and I think that being able to cultivate that environment starts with each individual person, making sure that they're aware of what you value, what they value themselves, so that they can make sure that it's aligned.
And also learn what you're good at and learn what you're not so good at. Because, you know, if you are very good at, let's just say, you know, a buyer transaction, but you're maybe a little like shaky on going on a listing presentation, but somebody else has a killer listing presentation, they're able to bring the other person with them and kind of collaborate their strengths that way. And I think that that's important for any business person, whether it's real estate or something else, is to know where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, and to amplify your strengths as best you can.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, do you know what type of personality you are?
Oh God, I think if it's DISC, DI.
That's what I would have guessed. I think, actually, and in that order, I think too. I think
High
you're
D.
dominant D.
Very high D.
Yeah.
Very high D, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, and I ask that because, you know, I've always said that there's no right or wrong personality, right? But the important thing is for you to recognize what personality you are, so that you can know how to work that to your advantage. And there are strengths and weaknesses that come with each personality. And so if you're self-aware of what your weaknesses are, if you're aware of what your weaknesses are, not only does that make you self-aware, but it allows you to work towards improving that, right? But at the same time, especially when you are assuming a role as a team leader, as a manager, as a coach, or somebody that is in charge of other people's success, let's say,
Right.
not 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 being aware of what your personality is will immediately put you at a detriment in that you might let the worst parts about your personality dictate how it is that you manage,
Correct.
and not knowing how other people respond to that or what
perceive
they react favorably to is a problem as well, because everyone has different personalities, and so being a good coach, being a good manager, being a good leader involves you being able to turn that switch on and off depending on who you're talking to.
Correct.
You know, you have to flip from being a high D to the expressive to the amiable depending on who you're talking to, so that you can get your message across more effectively. And that's true across the board, even with clients, right? But it's especially interesting when it comes to how you manage, because it's something that's often overlooked. And so for me, when I have the one-on-ones with our agents, it's focused on that professional development and having them recognize what type of personality they are.
Right.
Let's talk about what your strengths and weaknesses are so that we can build off the strengths, but at the same time work on the weaknesses. I want to know what you are, so I know how I should talk to you, and
Correct.
so it's just, it comes full circle, and I think that being able to master that will take you far.
Well, and I think it's funny, like, even, like, aside from the disc, I always try to ask people, like, what's your love language, right? Because some people need words of affirmation, and you're like, that may not be something that I would typically do as a high D personality, but if I know that that person requires, you know, that cheerleader,
Yeah.
I have to morph into that person.
Right.
And not that I don't want to, it's just that doesn't come naturally to me.
Right.
So, you know, it's just one of those things from a managerial perspective is, you know, how do you morph your personality that you're accustomed to or that comes natural? How do you morph that into making other people successful?
You know what it is? Emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Probably one of the most important things in business, and so overlooked.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from what we just talked about to empathy, being able to empathize with people. Like, there's such a lack of empathy that it drives me crazy. And in everything, I'm very pragmatic, I'm very moderate, and I just look at things from a logical perspective, and so it's very easy for me to pick up, man, that was way too hard. If they just empathize a little bit more, this would have been so much
Well,
easier.
I think we talked about this too recently. Like, one of my agents, I do my one-to-one with him, and I said to him a couple of weeks ago, I go, your empathy is like out of this world. And I go, and people can appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Like, he has a potential seller and she's very overwhelmed. She moved into like a senior housing facility and it's not cheap, right? So it's expensive. She's got this house that she wants to sell, but now that everybody knows she's moved, they want all her stuff and they want her to give it to them for free and all this stuff. And he said, listen, if you need any help moving things, just call me. I'm not here to make a dime off of you. Let me just help you, you know, because he understands the stress that she's under, and he can put himself in that kind of emotional state, right? And I don't know that I'm like that. So for me to like see that in him was really awesome, to be like, you know what, you're a really good person, and people can appreciate that.
And I think that allows us to learn from one another as well.
Correct.
Because even emotional intelligence actually is not just how you are with other people, but also how you are with yourself, and recognizing, hey, I need to improve this about myself.
Right.
And being self-aware about all of that, like you just said, you recognize that one of your agents did something that probably would be very hard for you, and you acknowledge it as being a very positive trait, and you acknowledge it as being something that you appreciated. And so with that in mind, we're not just teaching or doing things in a manner that will be advantageous to us, but at the same time, we're learning from one another. And I just think that if we had more of that in business and on teams, in life and politics and everything, I mean, we would be just a much better society, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes with everything. But, you know, I think personal and professional, you know, the way that you are, you can always improve. There's never a day that, you know, you can be 70 years old and still have room to improve on anything. So you just never know. But, you know, I think my team is a very good group now, where they all are pretty much on the same page, but they all are very different personalities. And it's just interesting to watch how they all bounce off each other, and myself included. Like, even today, like, we had a conversation about the market shift, and like, one of them only has one pending, one has nothing pending, and that they're freaking out. And I'm like, I'm in the same boat,
Yeah.
And we're all on this playing field together.
Right.
We're all on the same team, and market conditions come and go.
Yeah.
We just we're all in this together kind of thing.
But that kind of camaraderie, that kind of culture allows you to then be able to very, very excitingly say, let's put our heads together and figure this out together, right? We're in the same boat. We have the same challenges. Let's brainstorm this out, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, kind of staying in that bubble of not knowing how you're going to get out of it and stressed out because now you're in your own head and you have nobody to talk to or nobody to bounce ideas off of. So absolutely, not just being able to have that office culture, that camaraderie culture, but at the same time having people whose values and whose visions align with one another.
Right.
I mean, that's the golden
end
nugget
goal,
there
right.
of the
I
conversation,
think
right?
that too, like, my team, like we were just talking about personalities, it's like there may be a client that, maybe doesn't gel well with one, but would do awesome with somebody else, and they're able to refer them within the team. And that just gives our clients a better level of service, right?
Yeah.
Because you have somebody who's a like mind, like personality, like everything. So they're able to better service that person and cater to their personality style. Where I think when you're opposites, you can clash and things become stressful, and that just doesn't make a good transaction for anybody. But as a team, you have a bunch of different personalities. You can kind of move people around as they need to.
Yeah. Awesome. I can continue on, but let's I think maybe we should wrap it up now. So closing thoughts, what advice, suggestions would you have for someone looking to go out on their own, whether it be their own brokerage, their own team, and then maybe not even in real estate, but just somebody who's looking to transition from a day-to-day to now a managerial role or leadership role?
I would say, I got lucky with these people kind of falling to me, but I would say just be very strategic in who you bring onto your team, and as they always say, hire slow, fire fast, right? So if something is not working out, nip it in the bud early.
Yeah.
Don't let it linger, because it just makes things difficult for everybody. And I would say take your time. That's my other thing is, it's not, it's what do they say? It's not a marathon, it's a sprint. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, yeah.
So, just take your time, put your plan together, make sure you have your to-do lists in order from start to finish, because, I think in the beginning I was really just taking it as it comes, and it was just kind of figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
Oh, I need a team agreement. All right, let me put that together. Oh, I need a this, and you're just kind of throwing things together as you go. So that would just be my advice. Just make sure you have a plan in place and just take your time.
Awesome. Great words of wisdom from the great Sara Tufano.
You're welcome.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And maybe we will continue this conversation.
You got it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.